AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today, golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Raising Cane studio.
Let's ride!
Hour 3, off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. AFR, presented by Relief Windows. I'm Matt.
This is Shaq O'Neal, and I hate Matt.
Cassie Spazzali.
Oh, look what you made me do. Look what you made me do.
Muso. And Mr. Toby Tom Play. All right, we're here. Glad you are as well. 5 o'clock quitting time. Glad you're driving home with us. What a crazy weekend in the SEC for baseball. There are 16 teams in the Southeastern Conference, which means you have 8 series in a weekend, right? 16, they each play each other, so you have 8 weekend series. 7 of the 8 this weekend resulted in sweeps. The only one that didn't was LSU Kentucky. Every other weekend series was a sweep this weekend. David Dellucci is here to make sense of the madness. Luch, how are you?
I'm doing great. I can't make sense of it. I was going to crack some cheesy dad joke about how the weekend swept me off my feet. You beat me to it, but
love it.
No,
I love a pun, Luch. That's the thing you have to know about me in this show. I love puns. So if you're going to bring that this weekend, swept me off my feet energy, then I am here for it.
No, it's full of cheese. Full of cheese.
Love it.
That's not me. That's
okay,
not
which
me.
of the 7 sweeps to you was the most surprising?
I would have to say, considering that Florida was swept last week, to go into hostile territory in Arkansas and then sweep the Razorbacks, I think that is symbolic of how bizarre the conference is going to be this whole year. And I started thinking about it. Every year we talk about how competitive the SEC is, and week in and week out, you never know who's going to win a series. And as I was thinking, 14 of the 16 SEC teams have been ranked in the top 25. The only 2 that have not made it have been South Carolina and Missouri. So that tells you how tight this conference is, that every single team has been there. And the fact that they can go in and week out and beat up on each other just shows you how impressive the talent is. And then also how big of an advantage it is to be a home team hosting a series. Now, I talked about Florida and Arkansas, but other than that, and Mississippi State, it's pretty much when you host a series, your fan base makes such a big impact on the other team that there's a huge opportunity for you to win the series or sweep at home.
Florida, that was their first top 5 road sweep this century, since the turn of the century. 26 years. That's pretty incredible. So is Arkansas really not that good, or is Florida better than we thought?
Florida is good. Florida's really good. They've got power pitching, a very talented position player group. Arkansas at times can underimpress you offensively. They've done that all season long so far. So I just think on a good day, which Florida had 3 of them back to back to back, you saw what that talented team can do. Very similar to LSU's roster. They just not have not played up to their capability yet. So when the dust settles, Florida is one of those teams that, it could be a hosting team that you go, yeah, I kind of saw that early on.
David Dellucci is with us. So the other sweep that I think for me was super eye-opening was Mississippi State sweeping Ole Miss at Swayze. And not because necessarily we're surprised that it was State. It's just I think we need to start having a very different conversation about State. Are they the best team in the conference?
Well, some would argue Texas is pretty solid from top to bottom. I think both those teams could go toe-to-toe and match each other up very well. State probably has an advantage offensively. Texas's starting pitching is about as good as it is in the country. But here's something that really stood out in that series. Yes, they went into Oxford. They manhandled the Rebels from the first pitch. And really, when you look down, you break it down, Ole Miss struck out 39 times in that series. You're not going to get a whole lot of offensive production if you cannot make contact. They also, I think, in games 2 and 3, they left 28 base runners on. So the Mississippi State pitchers, it almost seemed to me like every Ole Miss hitter was guessing, and they guessed wrong every time.
David Dellucci is with us, SEC Network. LSU will be in Oxford in 2 weeks, and they'll be in Starkville in 4 weeks. Give me a sense of where you land on LSU after finally earning an SEC series win.
I think Game 3 was huge for LSU, just the way that they were able to battle and come back. We had talked last week that Kentucky was a chirpy team. They were going to try to get under your skin, rattle you a little bit. They were going to be aggressive on the bases, throw strikes. Aside from a heck of a performance from a legitimate ace on Friday night, LSU bounced back. William Schmidt did a great job of coming in and taking care of business. And Jay has been shuffling the lineup, and I think he's found some really good pieces. I love Stanfield up at the leadoff position. Curiel is a great 3-hole hitter. I think he's got that going right now. And you're going into hostile territory when you play Tennessee. It's a place that LSU's very familiar with, but it also helps your team bond. It's kind of a us against the world atmosphere. And LSU's in a good place, man. They're going to play a midweek game where they should win, and not only should they win, but they should beat the brakes off of Southern, give them more confidence rolling into another SEC series. So this was huge. This is going to do big for the morale. It's a very talented team, like we're talking about Florida. They just needed to catch some breaks and feel good about themselves, and that's what they did.
Luch, what happened to speaking of LSU goes to Knoxville this weekend, what happened to Tennessee getting walked off 3 times by Vanderbilt?
Well, pick your walk-off. Let's see, a base hit walk-off, a squeeze bunt walk-off, and then a grand slam walk-off. And I read that Vanderbilt, in their last 10 SEC games at home, 7 of them have been won by walk-offs. That's just crazy. That's crazy. They had a rough time over there, and they could not separate themselves. Their offense let them down, and Vandy's got a good offense this year, but that's not your Tennessee team from the past where they just outslug you and lead the nation in home runs. I think they've only got 40-something as a team, 41 maybe as a team. There's a couple of hitters that you probably circle. One guy's Henry Ford. He's got 9 home runs. You don't want him to beat you, but other than that, it's not a team that's going to hit the ball out of the ballpark. They do it with pitching, and they pitch really well, and they've got a solid bullpen. They all throw gas coming out of the bullpen, but they're not going to beat you in a slugging match, and I think LSU's got the power that when the bats are hot, they can hit the long ball, and they can put crooked numbers up on the board.
Luch, I got one more for you. David Dellucci's with us. I want to ask about the Auburn-Bama series where Bama got swept last week, now swept Auburn. But Auburn is, I think, the bigger story here. After that great midweek win against Georgia Tech a few weeks ago, they beat Texas in the first game of that series. Since then, Auburn can't find a way to win a baseball game. What's going on with Auburn?
Auburn's playing well now. It was back and forth. I mean, it was toe-to-toe throughout the whole series. It was a rivalry series where another series that got kind of heated. I wouldn't sleep on Auburn. I think they're a good team. They're a solid team. They're not going to wow you. There's not going to be one guy that stands out and captivates your attention. They just play really hard. They play for Butch Thompson. They love Butch Thompson. He's a great players coach. Some solid pitching. Their starting pitching rotation is a sleepy, good rotation. So you'll look up and you'll see Auburn in the top 10 throughout the whole year. They're not going to fall very much just because they're a consistent team. And Chase Fralick is probably one of their better bats on the team. He's starting to get hot. Had a great weekend this weekend. So they'll still be there. As the season kind of rolls on, Auburn will be at the top.
David Dellucci, SEC Network, good enough to hang out with us every Monday to recap the weekend that was. Man, I'm sure it's happened before at some point, Luch, but 7 out of 8 series ending in a sweep. I mean,
it's crazy.
You remember anything? I got none that, I don't know if any of the SEC Network folks did any research. I can't remember anything like that.
I don't ever remember that. And look, I think it was 3 sweeps the weekend before and 2 the weekend before that. So get ready. It'll be interesting as we move on, but I think it's going to tighten up, and the pitchers start to get their groove, and it's harder to hit these big offensive numbers. So there may be more sweeps ahead of us.
Thanks, Luch.
Thank you.
Be well. It's After Further Review, brought to you by Parish Restoration. ParishRestoration.com. Kill mold, remove odor. Have toxic mold or think you might? Parish Restoration can help. It's simple. Call Jim Woodworth and the gang or go to ParishRestoration.com. 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 Really easy. They'll give you that estimate, tell you what it'll cost. You'll find that it's cost-effective, it's more effective, and more efficient to have them come spray their patented non-toxic dry fog, have mold, odor. Maybe you want to sanitize your space, get rid of dozens of harmful pathogens. Parish Restoration can help. Give them a shout. Just fill out the form on the homepage. They'll be in touch. ParishRestoration.com. That's ParishRestoration.com. All right, y'all, it is AFR. We're glad you're hanging out with us here on a Monday edition presented by Relief Windows. I do want to circle back to Will Wade meeting with reporters at his introductory press conference here on this Monday. We also broke the news over at LouisianaSports.net on Saturday about LSU edge Gabe Reliford tearing his ACL, his 2026 season very likely over. There is an outside chance he could maybe come back late in the regular season or perhaps for a playoff run, but all that remains to be seen. But I do want to talk about the impact of Reliford's injury. We'll get to that. Jimmy will be here in about 30 minutes from right now for Otterlock, so a lot to do, and glad you're hanging out with us here on AFR.
After Further Review.
You know, when I talk about Duplessis Builders, I want to focus on the Duplessis part of Duplessis Builders because that's Derek Duplessis. And Derek has just an amazing story, right? He's a Louisiana guy, went to LSU, graduated with his degree in mechanical engineering, minor in aerospace engineering, was working as a project manager in the plants, and decided he wanted to pivot. Family member wanted to put in a pool. He said, I think I can do that. Learned the trade, built a pool. That first year, he built 8. The next year, he built 60. And now they're one of the fastest growing and biggest pool companies in our state. As a matter of fact, last year, Duplessis Builders was named a top 50 pool company in America, not in Baton Rouge, not in Louisiana, in the United States of America, top 50 in the country, where they offer you a 10-year workmanship warranty because Derek, as an engineer, builds a premium quality product that lasts. DuplessisBuilders.net.
After Further Review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding, and we do shutters too.
I know we've taken I know people have been talking about us a little bit. I understand I'm not for everybody. And we understand also that LSU isn't for everybody. But one thing we both understand is I'm for LSU and LSU's for me. And make no mistake about that.
Isn't that such a perfect way to phrase it? I mean, there's a lot of people who are attacking Will Wade. A lot of them are North Carolina State fans, whatever. But we said it last week, when Will Wade was caught on that wiretap, thereafter he was vilified. He was a villain in college basketball. The only place where he wasn't was here. And he said it in this press conference today. about some of the closest people in his life were in that room today. And my goodness, do you see the affection he has for Wade Roos and for Heath Schroyer? Like, if you weren't watching that press conference today or you haven't seen any of the clips, like, just look at. Now, I followed Will around today. So the press conference ended, and he gets off stage and he immediately goes over to where the students are. And and they're cheering for him, and the SEC Network cameras are there, and he's doing the boot up thing and doing photo ops with the students who showed up. And then he stayed on the floor. It had to be for an hour. I was one of the last people to leave. And I followed him, and I had the video on my phone, for 4 or 5 minutes of just watching him hug people who he probably hadn't seen in a while. And you just saw this genuine, imagine if you saw your college roommate for the first time in 5 years. Someone who you're really close with, good friends, relationship that, forever, as long as you live, whenever you see this person, you're going to have a connection, a relationship with them. And you saw him for the first time in 5-6 years. What would that moment be like for you? I feel like Will Wade experienced that 100 times today with various people. So I know for a lot of people that aren't here or from here, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I still tell you, he left a better basketball job to come here. So my first reaction, I know the governor and Lee Mallett tried to pull this off last year. We've talked about it plenty. That's not news. That's a thing that has been written about, talked about. We all know it. And we know why it didn't happen. We've all talked about it a ton. But that was going from McNeese to LSU. That was an easy decision for Will to go from McNeese back to LSU. The thing that I was skeptical about is if he would leave NC State for LSU, because NC State is a better job. People care about basketball there. There's more resources there. They want to win a national championship there. They have won a basketball national championship there. It's a different level of commitment and buy-in. Here, everything will always be football and everything else will be second or third or fourth or fifth. And there was never a lack of desire for this to happen from the governor and Lee Mallett and then obviously when Wade Roos came in and on down the list, it was would Will leave. And when it became clear, say 6 weeks ago, that was there was very real mutual interest. Then it was just about how it was going to be executed. Well, now Will Wade is here. By the way, can you play 18 Muse? Because he was asked when the process of his return started, and I kind of had a chuckle under my breath.
Look, we have a familiarity with everybody. I worked with Verge before. I worked with Dr. Roos before. I've worked with Heath before. So there wasn't some formal interview process. We all know each other. We've all known each other, for a long time. So really, what's today? Monday? Pretty much kicked into gear on Wednesday of last week. That was pretty much when first contact was made, and that was when the process started. But because of everybody's familiarity with with each other, it moved pretty quick.
There's probably some semantics baked in there to say first contact, maybe formal first contact to an agent or something like that. But I don't think anybody realistically believes the first time anybody ever had a conversation about this was Wednesday. I mean, we've been talking about this for a year. Literally, we've been talking about this for a year. So here we are. But for Will now, the process begins of, okay, here's the fanfare, here's the fun day. They bring out Mike the Tiger in a general suit, and there's the drum line, and they're playing I Will Wait for You, and you have Backstreet Boys, Backstreet's Back, and all this sort of stuff, and there's fans there, and everybody's cheering, and he's hugging all these people, and okay, well, now you got to go get started. and you got to build a staff, and you got to build a roster, and you got to fundraise, and you got all the stuff that goes around that we just watched Lane Kiffin do for football. So really my two questions that I got for Will were both about that. It was about roster budget and about his staff. Let's start with roster budget. I asked him point blank, did you talk with administrators about roster budget? And what do you need monetarily to be able to win and hang banners, as he said?
Look, we've had some conversations. I'm not going to share that, but I mean, this is LSU and Verge, Heath, everybody, Dr. Roos, everybody. Look, Coach, you go build a roster that'll help us compete. We've never put a number on it. We've put a roster that's going to help us win and help us compete, and whatever that number is. I mean, look, the first year it is going to be a little bit higher. We're going to have to go get a bunch of new players, and the new players and the good players cost. They ain't cheap. And so, look, the first year it will be high, but once you get them in and you can retain them and you get them, retaining guys is a lot easier than going to get them. So the first year, yeah, there may be some sticker shock, but we've got a good plan, and there hasn't been a number put to it. It's not like this is what you're going to spend. It's spend till you feel like you have a good enough team to compete in the SEC.
I didn't think he would give us a number. Nobody is going to disclose their number. It doesn't mean you don't ask the question. That's our job as reporters, is to go ask the question. He can answer it how he wants, but I got to ask the question. What he did say, which confirms something we talked about last week, is I told you unequivocally they had not discussed it. Like, Will Wade was not told, you have $12 million, $15 million. I know that was a report from some NC State guy, and I told you that was categorically false. And I know that for a fact, that they did not promise Will Wade a roster budget. What that number gets to, I think, this year, not only is what it takes to be successful, but what can you go raise to build a successful roster? The other part of it is staff. Now, there have been reports of Johnny Jones leaving Texas Southern to join the staff. There have been reports of Rick Stansberry, former Mississippi State coach, coming on as the general manager. I thought that's interesting because when I asked Will Wade about his staff, and what I asked him, the way I asked it was, do you have a timeline for having a staff in place with the portal opening up in a week and a day? And how do you begin that process of evaluating the current roster and the portal to put together your roster for next year? This is a 40-second answer, but the most, I think, impactful thing he said here is that he's not going to have a GM.
We're not going to have the biggest staff in the world. I want to have 100 people running around and walking on top of each other. But, we're going to have our shell recruiting staff in place here in the next, hopefully by the first of next week. I would think we'll have 2 to 3 assistants, and then we're going to leave a couple spots open and work through that as we move forward. But we'll have 2 or 3 folks in here. We'll run a tight recruiting. I'm not a guy. I've done this at other places. Like in college, it's a little different in the NBA. Like I'm the head coach and the general manager. Like there's no you don't have to have all this other stuff. Like the decisions on the roster are ultimately going to come down to me. Now I'll get input from everybody else, but it's going to be me.
So I do think, and when Heath Schroyer was with us last hour, and if you missed it, we had a 30-minute conversation with Heath Schroyer in studio earlier in the show. I asked him about the GM spot, and he sort of confirmed that now maybe that's just nominal, maybe it's just title. There won't be a general manager title for the basketball program. It doesn't mean you won't have somebody in a support advisory role. But Will was pretty definitive there that he's the coach and the general manager. They're not going to have someone there making personnel decisions. So something that's going to be interesting. But Will did say that he's talked to, I think he said 5 or 6 of the current players on the roster, and he's got to do that. He's got to evaluate this current roster, who's going to be offered the opportunity to return, who won't, which of the commitments are going to have an opportunity to sign and play for this program, which aren't going to be honored. Are there players at NC State or players that were committed to Will at NC State that might flip to LSU? And then obviously, he was already doing work on who might be in the portal. Some of those names have already popped up. While you can't formally be in the portal yet till it opens on the 7th, there are players that have declared their intention to enter the portal. So there's some work, no doubt, that he and his staff have already done, starting to evaluate the players that have or will be available. So the work begins in earnest now for Will Wade and his eventual staff to start building toward a championship. And I'll continue to say the realistic year one expectation is next March on Selection Sunday that LSU's name be one of the 68 that's called on one of those bracket lines. I don't care if it's first four, final four, whatever. There's enough resource here that you should be one of 68 teams to see your name pop up on Selection Sunday next year. I think that's a very realistic year one goal. All right, it's After Further Review. We're brought to you by the Williamson Eye Center. Call 924-2020. You want to see 2020? Call 924-2020. 924-2020. Maybe you've been told you're not a candidate for LASIK. Well, maybe you're not a candidate for LASIK. But maybe you are a candidate for EVO ICL. See, LASIK changes the shape of your eye. So maybe just the biology of your eye doesn't allow you to be a candidate for LASIK. But EVO ICL, actually, ICL is implantable contact lens. They implant the contact lens into your eye, and it's a reversible procedure, by the way. But that's an opportunity for people who are nearsighted to be able to see 20/20. That's an alternative to LASIK. They also have the custom lens replacement. There's PRK. There's so many options for refractive procedures that could be the perfect option for you, but you won't know until you go for that consultation with Dr. Blake Williamson. They've got locations all over Greater Baton Rouge area. It's Williamson Eye Center, WilliamsonEye.com, WilliamsonEye.com. Okay, all it is After Further Review. Monday show is brought to you by Relief Windows. Going to knock out a quick break. The really disappointing news for LSU football this weekend, Gabe Reliford, torn ACL. I do want to react to that and kind of assess where that leaves LSU at the edge position. We'll do that as we continue here. Jimmy's in 15 minutes on AFR.
After Further Review.
All right, y'all. Spring is here. Maybe you know that by the end of the school year, you're going to be relocating. Not too early to start thinking about selling your home. Well, Darren James can help. 335-7666, 335-7666, 335-7666. That's Darren's cell, or agent225.com. Most user-friendly website in real estate. If you need to sell your home, call the realtor that sells more homes than anyone. You will have an unbelievable customer service experience. You know, I get an email every week from Darren and his team, which is a current market report, advising about my home values, what the market's doing right now to make me a more informed homeowner about when the market might be right to buy or to sell. You want the best experience possible and to sell your home fast? You want Darren James. Agent225.com.
Think real estate, think Darren James.
After Further Review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding, and we do shutters too.
Jimmy will be here in about 10 minutes from right now. The Final Four is set. So we will get Jimmy's early thoughts on that, see what he's got. Otterlocks are posted over at louisianasports.net. It was a really, really disappointing day on Saturday when we learned Gabe Reliford had torn his ACL. So we went out to practice on Saturday, noticed that 19 was not with the edge rushers. He was replaced by Kalaj Cobbins with the twos. So when we left practice, I started making a lot of phone calls to inquire about why Gabe wasn't there, just to first confirm that he wasn't. I went back and looked at some of my practice video from Thursday, and Reliford was there on Thursday working with the edge rushers. And pretty quickly, I found out that he had torn his ACL. I had a handful of people confirm it to me. Reliford had a sort of cryptic Instagram story from Friday that sort of alluded to that injury. And sure enough, learned and was able to confirm that Reliford did, in fact, tear his ACL. So as I was told, the optimistic timeline, and this isn't, I don't think, any breaking news. I mean, we all love football, cover football, watch football. We know timelines for ACLs, right? The optimistic timeline is about 7 months if you're early. And that's before the acclimation period, which is mandated by the NCAA. and then conditioning and all that stuff. So you'd be talking about earliest November for a Gabe Reliford return potentially. And it may not even be worth it at that point. We'll see. Maybe if LSU ends up making the playoff and they play through December and January, maybe he could come back and be a rotational piece and give you something. But what does your edge group look like at that point? Is there even really an opportunity to get on the field? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. So it's very disappointing. And, I had a conversation with a staff member over the weekend, and this person was just crushed for Reliford, because what this person told me was Reliford, just attacked the offseason in his rehab. So remember, Reliford played 4 games last season. As a freshman, he came in 24, played in all 13 games with 1 start, and was a really effective rotational piece. And then last year, he didn't sulk when they went and added Pyburn and Peyton and Butler. He became part of that rotation. He was part of that 4-man rotation in the 2 deep. Well, he separated his shoulder, and it was severe enough to where they ended up choosing to have surgery and shut him down after 4 games. As I understand it, Reliford wanted to play through that injury, but he was advised that was not smart. It was because it could worsen if he played through it. So he had the surgery on the shoulder, shut it down after 4 games, but then really attacked this offseason. And this is the guy that you love to pull for, man. He's a Louisiana kid who has come to LSU, has waited his turn, battled through an injury, and then this offseason, every time, as I was told, man, people would go in the facility, man, there's Gabe Reliford working out by himself in the weight room. There's Gabe Reliford doing football drills in the indoor by himself. There's Gabe Reliford in the training room, sort of attacking his rehab and his treatment for his shoulder, getting himself right to be ready for this year, his 3rd year in college as a redshirt sophomore. And then for this to happen on the 2nd day of fall camp, on the 2nd day of spring, is just devastating and really unfair, man. Life can be unfair sometimes. So I have no doubt that Reliford will attack this rehab like he did his last with the shoulder, and it is super disappointing for him. For LSU now, the attention, though, turns to replacing him and what this means for that room here throughout this year. So, look, we all know, and you got 2 elite-level transfers at the edge spot. Prince Wiluman was the number 1 edge in the transfer portal, started his career at Nebraska. Last year played at Ole Miss, was nearly a double-digit sack guy. He's 6'4", 244, again, coming over with Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss. And then Jordan Ross, who's 6'5", 246. Remember, Jordan Ross in the composite was a top 10 overall player in the country, 5-star, consensus 5-star, who had really just been a rotational guy the last 2 years at Tennessee, but comes to LSU now with the opportunity to be a starter. So Umanmi Ellen and Ross are running as your starters right now. Your 2s, again, had been Dylan Carpenter and Gabe Reliford. Reliford was replaced by Cobbins on Saturday. Kalaj Cobbins is an interesting one. He's 6'3", 234, and when he showed up, he was light, but he's put on some weight as he's grown, now going to his 3rd year of college, and he's also waited his opportunity. Carpenter is in his 4th year in college as a redshirt junior, and he's a little bigger at 6'3", 252. But again, when you look at a guy like Umanmi Ellen at 6'4", Ross at 6'5", some of these guys, and then Jalen Brown is the other transfer that you kind of put a star next to, because Brown's a guy from the state of Alabama who started his career at Missouri for 1 year, transferred to South Carolina last year, but was injured in fall camp and missed the whole season. But he was there with Sterling Lucas. Well, Lucas comes over to LSU, and Brown follows him. So that's a 3rd transfer, and this is a guy who's 6'6", 270. Think Cam Jordan, right? Much bigger defensive end. But a guy who didn't play at all last year and played minimally as a freshman at Missouri 2 years ago, but now is on his 3rd SEC school in as many years and has familiarity with the coach. Speaking of the coach, Sterling Lucas is working with the edge rushers, and we've seen Kevin Peoples kick in and work at defensive tackle. That's a change because Peoples the past couple of years has coached the edges and now is moving inside to coach defensive tackles. So I think that is an interesting one. And then you throw a big star next to Lamar Brown, who is, by the way, listed on the LSU roster as a defensive end. I know there's been a lot of question about what position he's going to play because he played offensive line in high school. We know he wants to play defense at LSU, would be an edge guy or an interior guy. And at 6'4", 295, it may stand to reason you'd play on the interior. But Lamar told us on this show last year that LSU was recruiting him as an edge. He was out there with Kevin Peoples' group every time we saw practice, and he's listed on the roster as a defensive end. Now, Lamar Brown's not going to be here until June. So, until his high school year ends when he graduates in May, and then he'll be enroll at LSU in June. But that's another guy that's going to give you some depth. And then you've got Damian Shanklin, who's a redshirt freshman, 6'5", 254, redshirted a season ago. And then Trenton Henderson, who's one of the scouting services had Henderson as a 5-star, but 6'4", 243, true freshman, early enrollee. He is going through practice right now through spring with the team. So you've got numbers, you've got options, you've got a good combination of really talented, experienced transfers, some veteran guys at LSU have waited their turn, and some young guys who are coming in, and one, maybe the biggest name still to come, in Lamar Brown. So you've got numbers. Uman Mielen, Shanklin, Ross, Cobbins, Henderson, Brown, Carpenter, Lamar Brown. That's 8. You got 8, that even minus Reliford, you got 8 scholarship edge rushers. Can you find a 4-man rotation among those 8? 4 or 5-man rotation among those 8 that can give you productivity? That's certainly the charge here. Assuming Uman Mielen and Ross remain your starters, who's that next group? Reliford was going to be part of that group, undeniably. Well, now you've certainly hurt your depth as part of that key rotation. How do they replace this? The great news is you got a dozen more spring practices to get a lot of guys reps to see who might fight for pole position once you get to fall camp in July and August. We'll certainly continue to follow that as one of the key storylines as LSU makes their way through the remainder of spring. They'll be back on the practice field on Tuesday. All right, it's After Further Review. We're brought to you by Shawbills Tire and Auto Service, ShawBillsTire.com, with locations all over South Louisiana. You know where to find them, ShawBillsTire.com. If you're thinking of buying tires, go to Shawbills because they're going to sell you name brand tires at wholesale prices. They're going to treat you like family, which will keep you coming back year after year after year after year after year after year. I mean, it's worked since 1968. You've been doing something a certain way for nearly 60 years, and you keep growing and expanding, and it keeps working. Keep doing that thing. Well, that's what Shawbills does. They'll sell you the best tires on the road at the cheapest price possible, and they'll keep you coming back by treating you like family. And, of course, if you're looking to work, you can always join the Shawbills team. You can go to ShawBillsTire.com, hit the Careers tab at ShawBillsTire.com, and see all of the different jobs and positions they have available at all of their different locations. ShawBillsTire.com, ShawBillsTire.com is where you can go to the website to find out more. If you want to learn more, hit the Careers tab at ShawBillsTire.com. Shawbills, where we keep you rolling. All right, y'all, it is After Further Review. We're glad you're hanging out with us here. We've got one thing left to do. We'll knock out our final break of the show. Jimmy will be here for Otter Locks, find out what we're betting on tonight. Remember, if you miss anything, AFR On Demand, presented by Brett Golf. Big thanks to Heath Schroyer, LSU's new Associate Athletic Director, coming over from McNeese. He will be the direct report for men's basketball. As he said it, he's backfilling Verge Osbury's old role. So he'll be an athletic administrator, basically filling the role that Verge had vacated when he moved up and elevated to athletic director. And Heath will be the direct report for Will Wade and for men's basketball. So great conversation with Heath Schroyer. If you missed it, it's up. It's up, Cassie, on YouTube. It's up. Yep. So go to the AFR LSU YouTube channel. You can see our full interview there. Heath spent about 30 minutes in studio with us. So if you want to check that out, you can do it at the AFR YouTube channel or on podcast. All right, it's After Further Review. We'll knock out our final break of the show. Jimmy will be here for Otter Locks next to wrap it up.
AFR.
Man, I'm going to go over to Goodwood on Wednesday, Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. And I know I say it often, and you can laugh. Yes, they do ED treatments. I got the funny name and the funny logo and all that stuff. But I need you to get that's supposed to be intentionally attention-grabbing to make you pay attention, so then we can talk about everything else, which are hormone replacement therapy, peptides, so many different treatments to help maximize your body's natural functions to look and feel your absolute best. And they also have another therapy that I'm going to go try sort of experimentally on Wednesday that hopefully will be able to help with things like back pain. And I'll give it a go, and I'll let you know how it goes. So I'll report to you on Wednesday, which actually is Wednesday Goodwood's our title sponsor, so I'll be able to tell you about it. I'm looking forward to that as well. So bottom line is, you want to feel your younger self? You can. YourGoodwood.com. YourGoodwood.com.
After further review, presented by Relief Windows. Windows, doors, siding. And oh, we do shutters too.
Down the stretch we come, final segment here on a Monday edition of AFR. Derek Roussel on the show text line said, Matt, I'm guilty of being one person that laughed. I just told my wife about it, then you played it on the radio. Play it, Muse?
Hey, Will. Hey, bud.
That was Derek. The one, we had one guy that laughed.
We figured it out.
He was the guy.
Look at this guy.
He's the guy.
Thanks for listening, Derek.
Thanks, Derek. Shout out. Oh, man. Yeah, so you should never have an inside joke on radio. That's why I explained the whole Bud thing to everybody last hour. But there's no rule about having an inside joke at a press conference. But it was awkward for everybody else in the room who had no idea why Will was calling me Bud. So good. All right, Jimmy's going to be here in a second for Otterlocks. What are we? Do we have him? Do we not?
No, we do not have him yet.
Trust tree in the nest, are we not?
Man, he just didn't answer again.
Okay. Well,
I've texted him as well.
I wonder if Parents' Weekend over at Alabama just got the most of him.
It could have. It's a big weekend, man.
He says basically spring break for dads and sons.
That's so good.
What a way to put it. All right, I'll just do it this way then. Jimmy's got 3 picks, all in Major League Baseball. They're up at LouisianaSports.net. Remember, you can always get Jimmy's plays over at LouisianaSports.net. So 3 picks today, all 3 in Major League Baseball. He likes the Boston Red Sox.
It's a great pick.
Terrible pick. Hate it. He's got the Milwaukee Brewers, which is Algonquin for the good land.
The good land.
That's minus $1.63. By the way, it's always money line unless otherwise noted. Minus $1.63.
It's a little juicy there, man.
That's pricey.
It's early in the season.
I don't know if I love that.
Yeah. We got to... Oh, wait. Hold on.
And then he's got the Mets on the run line, plus $1.09. I kind of like that a little bit.
We got Otter.
All right. Hit it.
Otter Locks.
All right, time to win some money.
Presented by Total Maintenance AC Repair. Same-day service means you will never sleep hot. 480-1000. We are Total Maintenance.
I think it's safe to say that I won the bet.
Otter, I have a confession to make.
Yes.
So I was listening to Live at Lunch on Friday. You weren't there because you went to spring break for dads and sons in Tuscaloosa. And Ace Seminara was on, and he loved the Yankees against the Giants.
Yeah, he went 3-0.
I just, in a moment of just stupidity and blind stupidity, and maybe it was just bias, I love my team, I bet basically everything in my DraftKings account on the Yankees money line on Friday.
And?
Oh, it hit. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Okay.
It's amazing. Okay. But that was such a stupid thing to do. I mean, like, why would I do that? But I did, and it worked. And so I'm really happy with Ace Seminara. You can send my regards.
Man, it was kind of a dog evening on Friday, 3-1 dogs, but then the favorites caught fire again, 3-0, and a big old lead in the fourth one on Sunday. But UConn saved the house a lot of money coming back to cover and win that one outright. Down in on the coast and saw a guy with a high 5-figure parlay. Michigan money line first half. Hit. Duke money line for the game. Ouch. We got 3 for you in Major League Baseball today. Boston and Houston. All right. So love Boston's lineup this year. Suarez against McCullers. We're going to take the Red Sox. against Houston. Houston rallied win yesterday against the Angels, saved one of their games, but it might be a rough year for the Astros. Milwaukee against Tampa Bay. Milwaukee's 3-0. They had a big deficit yesterday against the White Sox, came back to win. The bullpens are the story here. Tampa Bay, St. Louis series this past weekend, the bullpens were horrendous, giving up more runs than innings pitched. We're going to fade both of those bullpens tonight. Milwaukee minus 65, and then the Mets laying 1.5 runs plus money, plus 109 at St. Louis, trying to take advantage of those weak bullpens.
Where are you tomorrow?
We're at Dozy Place on Government Street in Mid-City.
All right, Otter. Good luck. Thank you.
All right, good luck.
All right, that's going to do it for us here. Some juicy plays by Otter. I don't know if I love that. You know what? I played him anyway. Give me more Ace Simonera.
AFR.
Getting on down the road, we remind you about Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry, lmfj.com, lmfj.com for Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. Gents, thinking of popping the question? Lee Michaels can certainly help with that, like they've done for 4 decades. They have the best selection. If you're thinking of popping the question, you want that beautiful diamond engagement ring, I can't imagine why you'd go anywhere else for so many reasons. You go to the big box store, it's going to be cookie cutter. You go to a boutique jeweler, it's going to be expensive, and you're not going to have as good a selection. Lee Michaels has 9 stores, so they have enough scale to give you a great selection and a great price. And the Lee Michaels experience. Sometimes it's intimidating, y'all walking into a jewelry store because we don't buy jewelry every day. But at Lee Michaels, it doesn't matter your budget or what you're shopping for. They're going to make you feel like you're walking in the door to do something special. They're never going to pressure you either. It's Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. lmfj.com, lmfj.com for Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry.